Well, hey there, everyone, and welcome back to Cowboy Survival. I'm Richard, and what I want to do is take another look at the Gordon Survival Knife. This is what it looks like when you get it down at Harbor Freight. It's a $9.99 knife, stainless steel blade, cast aluminum handle. It's got a little survival kit that comes with it. It's back in here. It's got a nylon sheath that it comes with. The item here screws off. The butt of the knife screws off, and you've got a little buttoned compass in there. The knife itself has got some issues. We did a video earlier where we took this knife and we did some modifications on it. What we ended up with was a knife that looks like this, where we have a rubberized handle on this knife. We also took the knife apart and then put it back together with some JB Weld, and I also did an etch on the blade using some ferrous oxide. I think it came out looking really nice. A lot of comments about that video, a lot of views on that video, but a lot of comments and a lot of suggestions on other things to do. So what I'm going to do in this video is we're going to do some additional modifications to this knife that I think is actually going to make it more useful. We know that, for example, the blade isn't real strong. Well, okay, that's something we live with. But the survival kit was not very good. The cordage that came on the end of the knife was not very good. There's no way to store any real good fire starter in this. So we're going to make some changes that I think you're going to really like. Let's just get into it. So on the original knife, it came with I'm going to just call it a string, through the pommel of this knife. And it's not very useful. It's just a string tied into a knot. And even the amount of cordage is not very good. So what I did is I took that off and I added about 8 feet of paracord. So I took that 8 feet of paracord and I put it through there and I tied it using what's known as a snake knot. And I was able to, that 8 feet compresses down into about a foot. So it's 8 feet, you fold it over, makes 4 feet, and then it makes these knots. It's a really useful, I think, way to store a lot of paracord. So I've got this paracordage here. I can use it for a lot of things. I use it to tie things. I can use it as extra laces. I could use this cord if I needed to tie, like I said, fasten something. You can use the inside of it sort of as fire starter, perhaps. But I also, the way I've got it tied, I can put it around my wrist, and I can, use that to help keep it on my wrist. So that's very helpful. I think it's a great addition to the knife and adds a little more utility because I've now got cordage with me attached to the knife. So the next thing I want to show you is what's inside the cap on the end of this knife. So originally, this knife comes with a little button compass inside this cap. And as we saw in the other video, that button compass was next to useless. It didn't work. So I pried it out of there very easily. It's in there with a little bit of glue, a little pressure with a little pocket knife, and you can pry that right out of there. And what I added was a cotton ball that's been embedded with a whole lot of chapstick. So what that does for me is I can take that cotton ball out, I can rub it on my lips if my lips were dry, but more importantly, I can use it to start a fire. I've got a video that shows that when you take these cotton balls and you put a lot of chapstick in them, they will burn for about 7 minutes. It's a really great fire starter. So again, I just stuffed that in the cap and it stays right there just fine. The next thing I did is I threw away the survival kit that this thing comes with. It's got a needle and thread. It's got about 6 matches with a striker, and it's got a fish hook with a little bit of fishing line. Not very useful. So it turns out that this knife is almost exactly the same diameter as a quarter. And you can take a quarter wrapper, one of those little paper wrappers that you take to the bank with quarters in it, and it'll stuff right down in there. So I did that. I took one of those, I made it. I put some packing tape around it to give it a little rigidity so that it won't basically wear out as I'm putting it in and out of the knife. It's designed so I can just slide it right out of the knife, as you saw. It's down in there. I just stick my finger in, put a little pressure, and it slides right out. Now, what do I have in this? So the first thing I have is a Band-Aid. I roll that Band-Aid up and put it in there. then I also put in there a little package of ibuprofen. So that little package of ibuprofen is there, and that's always something good, I think, to have when you're on the trail. You never know when you're going to get a headache, you get dehydrated, and a headache can really debilitate you. I have a little nail here. This is a roofing nail, really. But what I did is I wrapped a bunch of fishing line around it, and I got the fishing hook attached to it, and then I put some tape on it to sort of keep it to get all together. But you never know when you might need a nail. A nail is really good and useful for, if you have to put two things together to create a hole in something. So that nail is there, plus I've got the fishing line that I can use if I want to go fishing. I don't know how many fish you're going to catch with a setup like that, but I've got a hook and line. Next, I've got in here, I've got a little bitty tiny baggie with a pack of salt in it, because salt is always something good for you to have on the trail. To replenish that salt you're going to lose through sweat. You can also put, if you're diabetic, you can put a couple sugar tablets in there. Now, on the other side, I've got a little tiny striker. This is the striker that came with the original survival kit. It's the only thing I kept out of the original survival kit. And what I use that for is I've got 3 survival matches that I added into this. I got rid of the regular, just plain wooden matches that I had, put these survival matches in. These will light even when it's wet outside. They're waterproof matches, and so I think these are going to be a really good tool. So I could take these, I could put all this stuff right back into this little tube that you might put a like stack quarters in. This will just stuff right back together. And well, wait a minute, I got something bunched up in there. So we'll just take this all, and we'll just take this and put that down in there. I'm also going to take my ibuprofen and put it in next, and I just sort of roll that package up, and we'll just stuff that down in there. I'm going to put my little nail in there, and I'll also put in there my rolled up Band-Aid. Now, as you can see, I've still got quite a bit of space in there. I could put additional things in there if I wanted to, depending, I don't know what you might need. You might put some water purification tablets in there. That might help out a lot. So I take this Band-Aid and put it in there. I'm going to take this tube, this paper, I just push it all the way back in there. Now you want to push it down far enough so that it gets below the threads, because if it's not below the threads, the cap won't fit on it. So then once you've done that, you just take your cap and you put that cap back on, and everything is in there. It's all waterproof and watertight. And you just screw that down, and you're ready with a better, improved survival kit over what was in the original knife. So I've got one more modification that I'm going to show you, and I think you're going to like the end result. So for the last mod on this knife, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this little pouch to the outside of the knife. Now, I could have gone and bought a little ammo pouch, but those are going to cost like $11 or $12. And honestly, I only paid $9.99 for the knife. I didn't want to spend a lot. So I went down to Dollar Tree, and I've got a picture of it here. I bought one of these little string backpacks that kids get sometimes. It's real thin nylon, and I bought one of those, and I created a pattern. I cut it out. And then as you can see here, I had my wife sew it for me. And then, so she sewed it so that it was inside out. So the seams are all on the inside of this thing. And so here's what it looked like when she got done, well, just about. Here's what it looked like when she got done sewing it. And she sewed an edge around the flap. And then what I did is I just simply took this and I turned it inside out. So the seam, the sewing part is all on the inside, and we've got a seam here on the outside. And so now that we've got all the seams in and everything pushed out, then what I will do next is I will take this and I will attach it to the knife sheath right about here. Now, I will fasten this down with Velcro. I can put all kinds of things in here. I can put a little ferro rod in here. But it's a nice little candy pouch on the outside of the sheet that I can put more stuff into. Now, the way I'm going to attach that is I'm going to use this 3M High Strength 90 contact adhesive. It's designed for fabric. I've used it before on our horse blankets when our horse has torn their blankets and I needed to repair them. And I figure if it can stand up to the force of a horse pulling on it, it's going to stand up to anything I might do to it. So first thing I have to do is I'm going to have to mask this off, and I'm going to show you how I do that. Okay, so I sort of know where I want this thing to go. I'm going to put it right in here. So I'm going to put some tape around all these areas where I know I don't want glue to get. So I'll put some tape here. And I'm just going to use painter's tape because it comes off really easily. And again, this stuff can get everywhere, so gotta be careful. And what I'll do is I'll get the glue on here, on this area where I want it. Then I'll press the pouch down onto it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this pouch in tape to press it down onto that. What I've also done is I have put some tissue paper inside the pouch to puff it up a little bit. And that is to keep the front of the pouch from potentially sticking to the back of the pouch if any of this adhesive should leak through onto or into the item. So if it sticks to the tissue, I'm not going to care. This will just keep it from sticking inside. And I'm going to put another big piece of tape around up here because again, you know, you don't want this glue getting anywhere except where you absolutely want it because it can be kind of messy. I really like this stuff. It's a really good contact adhesive, and it really works very, very well when you're trying to attach fabrics to each other. As I said, I've used it for the horse, and it should work just fine for this project as well. And so it looks sort of like Elmer's glue, doesn't it? So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to press it right down onto that area. There's a lot of extra glue there. That's okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this pressed down by using some more tape. I'm going to move over here. And we'll have our pouch. Okie doke. So there we go. Now we're ready to let this dry and set up, and then we'll see what happens at the end. Well, you might hear a little thunder behind me. We're getting a little storm coming through from that hurricane that just hit down in Louisiana. But I thought we'd just summarize what happened. So I took the tape off of the knife, and my pouch is attached very firmly. Didn't turn out quite as pretty as I wanted to. It's a little messier than I wanted it to be. But I think with practice, I could certainly get that better. So let's recap what we did. In the original video, we rubberized the handle on the knife. We also etched the blade, and we put JB Weld inside the handle to sturdy it up and make it stronger. Then what we've done is we took the cap and we took the button compass out of this cap and put in a cotton ball with the chapstick in it as a fire starter. We have a much better improved survival kit built in there. Then I can, there we go, okay. Then we also, on this, I added a nice paracord lanyard, and I used about 6 to 8 feet, I guess, of paracord, and tied it up using a snake knot as my lanyard. I can put this over my wrist, and then finally, we added the pouch on the outside, and inside this pouch, I've added a ferro rod fire starter. This ferro rod is fairly good. It sparks very nicely with no problem. And it's got a whistle. And it's also got a small compass. And wouldn't you know, the compass on this thing actually works. How about that? So, I think overall, we have made this a much better knife. Granted, it's got its limitations from the get-go because of its manufacture, but overall I think this is a much better knife than what you get fresh out of the package from Harbor Freight. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Try it at home. Remember what we always say, stay strong, stay prepared, have a blessed day, and we'll see you real soon right here on Cowboy Survival.